beforehand, and when asked if that person has been there all night at the convenience store, this person says yes. And the joke is that the person who plays Jeff stinks, and so basically she just says, oh, amazing, and then she just keeps on going on, and there's a bunch of different things that she doesn't necessarily find funny, but she has to be very in support of the certain things because Pony is the one that finds them funny, and she wants to show her support as well. And then Witty, just her relationship that she has with another character, Tim, they bounce off of each other very well, and she finds something very interesting about him, and that makes her want to go back and forth with Tim because Tim is also a very strong-headed character, and yeah.
Talk to us a little bit about how you relate to your character. Would you say you're similar, different? How do you fit in with her?
Yeah, I would say for a lot of her personality, it's very similar to mine. I like to think that I'm also very sarcastic, but I'm also very professional in the sense that she is. And there's a lot of times in my life where I have to be the one to really take the lead or call the shots, and that's what she has to do on a day-to-day basis. But there's like a bunch of differences that we also have that it was really hard to take on when I was developing her character.
Tell us a little bit about something in particular that was challenging for you in developing Erica's character.
Her sensuality, her choices of intimacy was like a really big thing for me because that's a big scene in the play that she has, and she's described as this person that a lot of people in the play are attracted to and all that kind of stuff, and it's very out of character for me, so I found that very challenging to take on since I feel the opposite of that. And she's a very confident person, and that's something that I have to be put in a mindset in order to prepare for her.
So you mentioned your mindset, having to get into a specific mindset to prepare. And oftentimes I would imagine the characters that you play are different. So how do you get yourself into the mindset of playing someone who's different from you in these very important ways?
Well, everyone is different, of course, but from the experience that I've had, if I'm having an off day and I know that it's going to affect my performance on stage, sometimes I get in character before I'm even on the stage and I just shut everything off. There are other times where I have like anxiety or I'm overthinking too much and I just choose to step away and collect myself and ground myself. But when it comes to her specifically, the thing I usually do is hype myself up a bit because it's a challenging thing to do, so I try my best to be like, oh, you got this, you're fine, you're doing good, and that usually helps a lot. Yeah,
sometimes we have to kind of talk ourselves up a little bit.
Yeah. Yes.
Now you mentioned that there are things about her that you really like or strive for. Tell us, what's the best thing about Erica?
Oh my goodness. She's very driven. I feel like she's a very motivated person, and with her background, to be a publicist of a very famous rock star takes a lot of work and a lot of motivation, and she is always about work until the certain circumstances where she differs from that kind of mindset. And so it's very nice because being motivated and driven is just a really good trait to have, and I really appreciate that about her.
And it sounds like you're drawing on some of your own experiences, some of the things that you want to do in terms of creating your characters. So
yeah,
a lot of stuff going into the process, for sure.
Yes, there is.
Oh, Kelly, you play the character Norman.
Tell
us a little bit about how he fits into this whole mix of characters.
Well, Norman is the antagonist. He doesn't want to be the antagonist, but he is by nature of who he is. He is a 24-year-old Pakistani running a store in New Jersey, surrounded by a bunch of 20-somethings who are learning who each other are, but they just happen to be raised by racists. So they pick up on those racist tendencies, and they use those racist tendencies on the store owner and his sister. Nazir, he calls himself Norman, but his actual name is Nazir Chandri. It's his way of Americanizing himself and trying to fit in, and he tries to keep the peace. But there are points in this show and confrontations. He pretty much has confrontations with all the men, and it's not pretty. It's not pretty at all, and it's coming out of the '90s, and the '90s were quite something. It was something that it wasn't that hard for me to reach for because I grew up in the '90s. Yeah. I am not a 24-year-old Pakistani, so let's just get that clear. And so when the people come to see it, they're going to go, what? So it's good, but it was challenging, and it really wasn't, because growing up in there and knowing what's happening now was compared to then, it's amazing the difference.
How do you, now you mentioned growing up in the 90s, so you can draw on your own experiences, going back several decades. How do you make that work today? How do you bring experiences from a long time ago and make them relevant for your character now in 2024?
Growing up in the 90s is impressed upon you. You do not forget what happens if you grow up in the 90s, especially with what's going on with the Clintons and, well, the just the inherent racism that was happening everywhere in America. People kept talking about the South and how bad the South was. Well, you know what? The entire United States of America was pretty bad, racist-wise, but nobody really talked about it then. There was really no way to mass communicate what's going on. There was no Instagram. There was no social media. I mean, it was just getting started. There was no, it wasn't any. We still had videos and DVDs and camcorders, and we had literal video of a man named Rodney King getting beaten by cops right there. 7 of them, 5 of them. I mean, 4 of them, 4, 5, 6, a lot of them. And I also remember the riots that happened because those cops were acquitted. These things you don't forget.
So you've drawn on a lot of your personal experience in terms of bringing us back to that time and bringing it forward. And as you mentioned, the identity of this character, his age, his background is different from yours.
Yeah.
And that happens a lot. So tell us a little bit about your process of developing him.
Well, it was okay. Let's just put it out there. I am a 55-year-old black man. I am going to be 56 and on August 10th. So what I had to do was pretty much come up with a completely different person, and I did based off a man named Kumail Nanjiani. Kumail Nanjiani is an actor. He was a comedian. He started in the early 2000s in Chicago, and I started with him. I watched Kumail Nanjiani grow as a comedian, and I watched him go on stage, and I listened to him talk, and I got some things, and I was like, maybe this sounds like the way it should go, and maybe I will, try to make it right, and somehow it came up the path that I am now Norman, a.k.a. Nazir Chandri.
Oh, perfect. It sounds like these characters are very distinct, very specific, and that you've drawn on a variety of different resources to create them. Now, we'll start with you, Lizzy. Tell us a little bit about what it's like as an actor to have that opportunity